You're listening to Super Power Up with multidimensional master, superpower expert, and former counterintelligence agent, Tonya Dawn Recla. If you're ready to disrupt reality, then sit down, strap in, and prepare to experience the show that proves there is no spoon.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, your superpower expert. And as part of our Disrupt Reality series, today I have this amazing woman. Like, it's just like, I'm kind of like in awe, like, I'm not worthy. Like, and maybe you have to kind of know the world that we come from to understand just how impactful this woman has been. But I'm going to do my darndest to help you understand that, because I think it's important that we know that it takes a single person's courage to truly create the waves that change the world. And so today's conversation is all around ideas that changed the world. And Jill Chambers is joining me, and she is the absolute embodiment of somebody who had the courage and listened to her guidance and went way swimming upstream in an extreme way in a world that a lot of us never have an opportunity to enter into. So Jill is a retired colonel from the United States military, and she's been inducted into the Army's Women's Hall of Fame in 2015 for her contribution. So if you don't have any access to that world or connection into it, let me just frame for you that is a big freaking deal. To be a woman and to be a colonel in the military, first of all, to retire, to serve long enough to retire, and then to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is you know, for those of us women who didn't do that in our military careers, you know, there's so much awe and respect for that. But that actually wasn't the biggest deal. She did over 30 years of service, but and we're going to flesh out her story, but her work, and it's such a remarkable story, changed how the military dealt with PTSD. And as we all know, like, we take that for granted. Like, of course that's a thing, and of course they're helping, and of course it's an issue that's being addressed, but it was not always that way. And so we're going to talk to Jill about what happened in that work. And I'm just so much in honor of this woman who disrupted reality. And her, if you've met her, like, she's this itty bitty little woman, like, she's so cute. And I'm like, I just laughed because I was like, oh my gosh, like the world just doesn't see you coming. Like she just kind of gets in there, and she's feisty and she's strong, and just a brilliant delight. And she's married to this remarkable man, Michael Peterson, who also happens to be a country superstar. Like, anyway, there's so much fun, and our family really is really honored to call them friends and to be able to love on them. And so please join me in welcoming Jill to the show. Welcome, Jill.
Oh, that was such a sweet introduction. Thank you so much. That made me feel so good.
But I mean, you've done so much for so many people. It's absolutely my honor to, wow, I'm getting choked up to present you to our audience, and just thank you for having the courage.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was such a treat to meet you when we were at CEO Space. I mean, it's like we're like little magnets. We got drawn to each other. Of course, with your beautiful daughter and your wonderful husband, it was like, I think I've known these people before. It was
Forever and ever.
So I totally loved meeting you. Loved your book, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit maybe. But thank you for just allowing me into your space.
Beautiful. Well, and I appreciate you coming on the show. I know that Michael's usually in the spotlight, but it feels so important to share your story. And as we like to here at Superpower Experts, our stories always start with, what are your superpowers? I think I've identified a few of them. How do you kind of relate to that question?
I guess there's a couple of things that I feel like really have helped me throughout my, and of course it didn't all happen at once. So these are like experiences that have built on together, but really understanding the concepts of making sure I knew how to play, knew how to take care of my health, the power of compassion, of course later in life now understanding about resiliency. And and this is a really fun one. And we sort of talked about this before, you and I did, just before you started this radio show. And I use this term vulnerability Is you were sharing a bit about Neva and just understanding that you don't have to be perfect. Okay, you and I came from a world where perfect was kind of the thing you needed to do to move along. So, I really actually understanding that being vulnerable is actually an asset. So I've turned it into and really understanding how vulnerability allows you to take chances, develop your courage, fail, learn from failure, and get up and go do it again in a smarter way. And it makes life so much more exciting than always just living on the edge of, I can't make a mistake. I can't. And we lived that way for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense to me on some level that would be kind of that realization, that real embodiment of that would be kind of this outcropping of the discoveries that you made about trauma in the body and how it works. And, I know a lot of our work here at Superpower Experts was informed by the realization when we saw that if we don't work with people, we call it, your resonance or your vibration, but if we don't work with people on what happens inside of their bodies, and if they're holding stress for too long and what, how that has an impact on decision making and what they're creating, then we're missing a huge part of the conversation. When we implemented that into our curriculum, everything started to shift. But the idea that you're going to go at this from your mind alone is super erroneous, and it's creating problems and disease and mental illness and other things in people. And if we don't address that, and if we don't have sophisticated methods for dealing with it, we're hurting people. Like we're causing real damage if we're not careful. And so I think that it makes sense to me that you would be able to feel that full on release and the freedom and the power in vulnerability and transparency, that everything that we seek is on the other side of that piece of it, right? It's when we enter into the space of connecting with others and being vulnerable and really, allowing others to hold us accountable and being transparent and all that fun stuff that we talk about. Everything we seek exists there.
Exactly. Oh, I just love how you explained all of that. That was perfect. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
That's my superpower.
Yeah, it just releases all of that. So you can listen to other people's opinions without digging yourself into a hole like, no, I'm the only one that's right, and I don't care what you have to say. I'm at a place now where I can listen to others and say, oh, well, isn't that interesting? I can use that as a fun phrase now. If I don't agree with it, it's okay. I don't have to, like you said, stress myself out and try and make my point. It's either the energy's there or it's not, and ultimately I get to choose that, and I choose peace and not getting just so wound up that it's going to be then detrimental to my other happy superpowers of wanting to play and being very healthy. So it all rolls together.
I love that. It strikes me where that really came into play for us was, coming out of counter intel and then going into like due diligence and vetting and business. Somebody asked us one time, they're like, well, how do you kind of exist in the world? Like, aren't you paranoid and suspicious? Like, do you have friends? And it was funny because I kind of got this confused dog look, like, I love people. Like, what are you talking about? And it dawned on me, what we had done is in our own personal development is that we had gotten to the point where, nothing was a threat. When you're connected and you're walking your path and you trust in the divine and you commune with it and you're willing to face the stuff that comes up internally, you're pretty much, untouchable from that space. Like there's no threat to your existence, because what we look for security and safety in the external environment is fleeting. It's not solid, and there is no promise of that level of freedom if we look into the external environment first. But in doing that internal work, we had processed through that. And so I was very clear. I'm like, there are certain questions we ask before we make decisions in business, or before we make a decision that puts any of us at personal risk. Like there are questions we ask before, Neva partakes in an activity, or it's like, of course you do a background check on a babysitter before you have them watch your kid. Like that's a pretty obvious point, but it doesn't mean we can't love the babysitter, even if we don't utilize them, because it just doesn't seem like a good fit. And we even took it beyond the point of, of allowing our minds to go to a place of we don't agree. And it's like, I don't need to agree or disagree until it has an impact on me personally, or on something that I'm stewarding or something I'm responsible for. I don't care what you think. Like, that's your opinion. Like, that's your business. Like, I'm busy. Like, I don't have the energy or the time to concern myself with how you developed your thought process unless you're paying me to help you work through that. Like, it's just not that fascinating to me.
Isn't that great? Isn't it so great that you can discern all that? And yeah, I love everything that you've just said, that well, I guess both of us have really developed a really interesting and very healthy toolkit because of our careers. It doesn't mean that we've taken our careers and just, discounted anybody who wasn't in line with us, or now we're doing something different. It's funny how you said the thing about you get that dog look. How many times have you introduced yourself and you just said you were in the military, and all of a sudden somebody will, whether it's meant in a playful way or they really mean it, they'll snap to attention and salute. And it's like, okay, that's what?
Who? What? Where?
But I'm not that. You don't. But of course, we lived that for our career time. And if there were people that weren't, of our rank, that of course they did that. But it's life. That's not who I am. It's what I did. And I love how you said that, you bring your toolkit of, asking good questions and, oh yeah, I remember learning this in the military, and, oh, let me think about this through, and just making good decisions. But it's not this precisioned, what most people who haven't spent time in the military think, oh, everything is just so dress, and don't spill anything, and stay in line, and don't smile. It's like,
well, not us. I treat it like everything else, in the sense that I believe that all of our experiences, everyone that we connect with, we're designed to integrate the pieces from them or from the experience that we need in order to kind of stand in our gap, to do our work, right there, where we've integrated it. And Justin and I are very clear, a big part of that world. One, it taught us amazing skill sets. It trained us, right? We certainly got sandpapered and polished through that process. And that's my delicate way of putting it. And but also the credentialing. Like, there's some serious work to be done in this world, and like it or not, we want to know people have walked through the fire and that they've been tested before we rely on them and relax into them with trust. And that, I think that's a good thing. That's a good check and balance that we have. Now, sometimes those accolades and those experiences haven't necessarily been integrated by everybody, and they kind of stop at how they look on paper. But that's for us to discern, what's the gift in it, or what's the value of it for us. I really want to dive into your story about how all this came to be. And I'm cognizant of the time, so let's take a quick break here. But before we do, why don't we tell people where they can find out more about you and about your lovely, magnificent husband also? Where can we send them to find out more about you and your journey?
Sure. So my website is This Able Vet. So this, ThisAblevet, thisablevet.com. And so that's my whole website that just talks about things that we've done in my past. And Michael and I our websites are connected together. So if you went to that one, you'd find him too. But if you went to his Michael Peterson Music online, you can find him too. So that's where both of us are found. We're joined at the hip forever and ever.
Beautiful. Well, and I'm going to tell you, this is all about Jill. So go to Jill's website. She's such a beautiful support and love for Michael and his career. And wow, she doesn't deserve to for this to just be told. So I'm super excited. Let's go on a break real quick, and then when we come back, let's share with our audience the magnificent work that you've done. So stay with us, folks. We're going to be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get Get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Awesome. You're back. This is the Superpower Up podcast, the Disrupt Reality series, and we're talking with Jill Chambers about her work in PTSD in the government. And I mean, that just doesn't even do it justice, but we're talking about we're talking about ideas that change the world. So Jill, where do you want to start with this story? I'd love to give them a background of how you even landed into the space where you were at a decision point, right? What were you going to do if you were going to follow, kind of the career, toe the line, or if you were going to really push for what you felt was right? Let's back them up just a little bit before that point, and then share that process with them.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So what really got me into all of this was at the events of 9/11. I was in the Pentagon at that time. I was several corridors away from where the plane hit, so I wasn't physically injured. But we went through an awful lot, myself and my team, in terms of getting people out of the Pentagon and just the horrific day that everybody, and at least in America for sure, felt that day. So unbeknownst to me, just based on those series of events and the things that myself and my team went through, and then me personally, so that happened, of course, on 9/11. I was still in the Pentagon and worked there until 2009. It never dawned on me that there was anything that was affecting me from that day. I thought it was perfectly normal for everybody in the world to sleep maybe 2 or 3 hours a night for 9 years and have pretty much reoccurring nightmares of burning aircraft chasing them. It's just, you get caught up in it. You're in a world of, you just get the job done. Yeah, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you just disregard all of that. There came a point in 2008, as I was transferring from being the protocol director for General Peter Pace when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I stayed on that staff when General Pace left and Admiral Mullen came on, and he had asked me to stay on and become his special assistant for what we termed returning warrior issues. And very specifically, he was concerned about what was going on with our service members who were returning from Iraq and Afghanistan with what we started to term invisible wounds. What was going on? So I spent about 18 months being out in the field, talking to our service members and just a variety of incredible professionals in the field of what happens with trauma, brain injuries, resiliency, just pulling all of those ideas together. And the end of the 18 months, going back to Admiral Mullen, who subsequently sent me over to General Casey to present my information, was, hey, we have got to start talking and making this a conversation about post-traumatic stress. And I say just post-traumatic stress because the word disorder was just not working with the military. It just sends a bad connotation instantly. Understanding that the medical field needed to use that word because the DSM-4 and the way they take notes, but in conversation, it was wonderful that after they really, honestly, in the Pentagon now, I'm not quite sure you'd ever find anybody talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. They talk about post-traumatic stress. So just thrilled about how the language can actually change the feeling to allow people to maybe start stepping forward a bit to say, okay, I need some help.
Well, I want to step in here though a second. Like, you roll that off your tongue, like that was easy. That was brilliant. Like, guaranteed. I know you, and you'll give credit where credit is due. Like, that was intuitively guided, and you had your human self had to be able to piece that together and say, oh, that makes sense, right? Because even though we get the intuitive guidance, some pieces of us have to kind of get on board with it, or our bodies don't do what we want them to do and our mouth doesn't do what we want it to do. So it's like you had to reconcile that internally. That's brilliant. Like, that in and of itself is enough to say that that's it. Ding, you win, right? You can go now. You succeeded. But there's so much more on top of that. So I just want to not brush over that. That was brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, once we worked a little bit on the language, it was, okay, we need to develop some kind of a program that's going to help start to build resiliency in the face of adversity. We were just strictly working with our military at this point. And this is when I had an opportunity to meet some amazing civilians. Dr. Marty Seligman, who is who works at the University of Pennsylvania, is what they call the father of positive psychology. And
I know his work. Brilliant. Yeah.
So it's not, instead positive psychology. No, it's not. Oh, look how pretty the flowers are. It's, it's not that. It's a way of, it's a way of behaving and a way of speaking and a way of being that really, like you talk about, changes the energy in the body. And his work in the civilian world and what he's done with school children across the world actually has been phenomenal. So we brought him to the table. We also brought Dr. Richard Carmona, the immediate past Surgeon General.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. Yeah,
oh my goodness. I was in Tucson with him.
Oh, you're
and
kidding.
We sat on an emergency preparedness committee together.
No. Okay. So you know how brilliant he is. And he's just so matter of fact and so cool.
He is. He can control environments just with his breath. Like I just sat in awe of this man going,
there you go.
Wow. Because it was some really, nothing like what you were dealing with, but at a much lower level, some really significant kind of, no shit, like we got to address this stuff. And he just was like, he just has this gentle, so huge shout out to Dr. Richard Carmona. Like you've obviously impressed two of us and brilliant. Yeah.
Well, yes, he's just wonderful. So I was able to bring, after spending time with him and then going back to Dr. Seligman and back to Dr. Carmona and talking about what we need, where can we go with this and what can we present to the military? And we're going to start with the Army. What can we do? And it was awesome. So in the process of course, that just doesn't happen overnight, as you can imagine, and especially in the Pentagon, just, trying to get past all the gatekeepers to, get to General Casey, to get this meeting, organize everything from travel to agendas to everybody needs to be on the same sheet of music. You can imagine just trying to piece this all together. Well, ta-da, it happened. It happened in November of 2008, actually. I brought them together for them to present and just be a part of this conversation to General Casey. What can we build to begin to actually, number one, talk about post-traumatic stress, because this is a huge issue that affects service members and their families and can go on for generations. Where can we start? And let's get something together. And that day, General Casey listened to these gentlemen with just open ears, and he walked out of his office, and it was the first time he did what, and you know what this term is, but he did a general officer sends, which means he sent a note to the entire United States Army that said, all right, we are now going to start talking about this, and we're going to address this, and we're going to really pay attention to what we can do to help our service members when it specifically around facing adversity. So hence was born the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness Program, which really trains our service members over a 10-day period on the aspects of being resilient. There are 10 particular skills that they teach. I actually got a chance to finally go to class in 2015. The classes had been going on for 5 years. And I kept asking, can I go? I'd like to go. And then employers got involved. And no, you're not in the military anymore. We can't afford to send you. It's like, I'll pay my own way. I helped create this. I want to be part of this.
Dude, that's the military for you.
It's crazy. And I guess the most amazing piece was I actually shared that little piece of a story to a female first sergeant who I had met at a different convention. And she said, wait a minute, of course you can go. Like 3 days later, I had a seat in the class. Leave it to an NCO first sergeant, right? So I was able to go, and I witnessed firsthand how incredible and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I was actually watched, there were like 120 young men in this class, and meaning young, they were anywhere from E4s to E6s, so probably early 20s to late 20s. And as I watched these service members, and all of them had very recently returned from deployments, anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And there was a time where I was looking at them, and I look at the floor, and you could see their feet just bouncing, like a super nervous, or pens or pencils tapping on the desk. And just this very crazy wound up energy. Of course they had that. It was completely normal. But by the end of the 10 days, we had these, I was just a student. So the instructors, who were phenomenal, had these young men coming in. It was one of the tasks that we had every day was to come in, and they called it hunting the good stuff. And you had to tell 3 things that really good things that happened since the time you left class until the time you came back the next morning. And all of a sudden you had these young men talking about, oh, my daughter kissed me on the cheek. And my wife, asked me if I'd go to a movie with her. Just things that of course these men would never say. And all of a sudden,
military men in particular. Yeah.
Exactly. One very specific one, a young man stood up and said, it was his son. He said, my son told me last night that he was happy to have me back. And his son, I think, was probably 9 or 10. And so then somebody said, what does he mean have you back? He said, he complimented me for laughing. It's like, wow. So I know it was just incredible. And there's just story upon story. And I probably can't even do justice to how Comprehensive Soldiers made a difference, but they've morphed it into what they call master resiliency training, which now, it's like the train the trainer thing. And it's just
funny you should say that. I have the book for that. I have the full binder because I ended up connecting. So I don't even remember now who it was. And they had asked me to come in and see what additions I would make to it. And I ended up, I think, I don't remember the story, but that we ended up, their section got siphoned off or something happened. And I am 99% certain I still have the full workbook for that.
Oh, I love that. But
that's crazy.
Look at how many things we have in common. This is hilarious.
It is so in depth. It's such a, but, and I love the work, but first I want to ask you, like, did you sit in that class with like tears in your eyes, like a proud mama? Like, oh my God.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I did. Of course, so all these guys are in uniform and I was in my little civilian little business little outfit.
So they had no idea who they were sitting with.
None, absolutely not. At the very last day of class, the instructors who I've known because through Dr. Seligman, that introduced me. And there were some young men that came up and they just hugged me. And these were men in particular that I actually picked out in class that thought, they're not even going to get through this class. They're not, and it was so wrong. That's where I saw the power of it. And not everybody's going to come away with that experience. There's still going to be some naysayers. There's still going to be some that aren't going to get it. And that's okay, because there are some that do. And, I also get it. You just can't help everybody, but you can sure give it the good old college try.
I love it. Oh, Jill, I love you on so many levels. And I'm gonna call you out on this. There was a point where you had to. I mean, you say it now in such a beautiful, eloquent way, and probably because you've practiced your own resiliency training and everything. But the reality is that there are moments in a lot of people's careers in the military and the government where they're faced with decisions about whether to make a move that feels in alignment with their own integrity and morals and what's right and what they're being guided into, or they toe the line. And that moment makes or breaks so much, not just for the person, but for the organization and for the ripple effect into the society at large. And I really encourage you to express to the audience, like, what that decision point was and how you found it within yourself to make that. And I know you don't love to highlight your work in that process, but I really want you to. I think that it was magical. And, if nothing else, do it in service to other people who are sitting in that space.
Sure. Well, and I know what moment you're talking about because we talked about this. But it was that time in between, being with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and really saying that we really needed to face this post-traumatic stress. We needed to talk about this. But so, I did kind of gloss over that. But in between that time of leaving the chairman's office and him saying, if you believe in this so much, we need to get this over to General Casey and start with the Army. But that it was probably about 6 weeks before we really got on General Casey's calendar. There were a number of senior officers, very senior to me, that were, sit down, be quiet, stop talking about this. This is bad for our Army. There's nothing wrong with us. Why are you saying anything about invisible wounds? It doesn't exist. The military's never had that. We don't have that. And it was just that constant conversation of, okay, they're older than me and they're senior to me. Are they right? It's like, they, and I really, really had to go inside my soul and really feel, am I going to go against this grain and really push this? Or just sit, like you said, just sit back and go with the flow. And, I could have, just stayed in, and I'm sure at some point, at least been thought of for general officer, which is, kind of a cool thing. But it was like, yeah, no, it was just one of those things I could feel, how when you're doing something really right, at least for me, like I can feel just this sensation in my body that says no. Mm-hmm. And I know it's, I feel like I have, this soul and these guides that are saying, yeah, no, you just keep going and you're doing the right thing. And it was honestly very difficult, but I had a couple of other civilians who were close to General Casey who kept sort of greasing the skids and working schedules. And, now we're doing the military magic here of, okay, well, how can we do this? And working people. It was definitely a total work in progress to get everybody on the same sheet of music to fire the one shot. And that the only one shot we really had was that day to pull everybody together to bring that team in to talk to General Casey. It was a one and done. It was the shot. And it was meant to be. And when I came away from that meeting and saw what General Casey did and moved forward with steps to really make a difference for our service members, it was like, yes, we did it. At which point I decided to retire so I could go out and work on this without anybody telling me what I could and could not do.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because Justin and I kind of came to the same conclusion at a certain point that at least at the time that we left, the structure was just too challenging to try to take on, and we could move faster and pivot quicker in other arenas and birth this work in a way that wasn't so impeded, with the knowledge that it always trickles back. There's you always have connections regardless. Right. And I appreciate you sharing that story. And just so all of you know who are listening, that's a career breaker. Like, not just did she ended up choosing to leave for sure, but that decision in and of itself, there are, people have certainly been creatively removed from service for lesser acts. And if, it's a very, very, very real reality. On top of that, she's kind of blithely say, oh, I got on the general's calendar. Like, I had to get on the general's calendar at one point, and it's not an easy feat. And it kind of goes like, fine, you have 5 minutes. Right. And, you've got to, like, the pressure of having all of your ducks in a row, it's unbearable at times. And, I had a 5-minute time slot that turned into an hour because there was some, anyway, let's just say that it was a very challenging conversation when you're chasing down spies and units. And so it was, to be the bearer of bad news is never fun, but to be able to say, and, there's something we can do about this, and so, but that's a, you got to go in, you gotta have some pretty intense intestinal fortitude to have some of those conversations. So not only were you facing the pressure, and it is dog eat dog. We were teaching here recently, actually at CEO Space, and someone had asked a question. Their son was going into a government kind of world and wanted to know how to prepare him for that, or what to offer him, through us. And I laughed. I said, the running joke in counterintelligence was always, if somebody's patting you on the back, they're doing reconnaissance for the knife. I mean, that was the world we came from. And I'd imagine the Pentagon was 1,000 times more challenging in that regard. And so you can't possibly understand the pressure of these environments, not to mention You're talking about war plans. There's huge money and power involved in those conversations. I mean, it's just the ripple effect is huge. And so I can't possibly overstate the contribution that Jill made. And of course, not on her own, and she would never claim that. And her own personal journey really had to come front and center with that. And it's, if nothing else, folks, take that as courage to, no matter what you're facing in your life, no matter what decision, even, we talked about the freedom of stepping into those places, but just we all kind of hit that pressure cooker moment, and your decision in that moment is going to dictate the trajectory that you take next. And, Jill's a living, breathing example of what walking your walk and being true to that commitment looks like. And so it's easy to brush it off and be like, well, yeah, but, she was a colonel and she was at the Pentagon. And these are things that most of us never even contemplate for ourselves. But it doesn't matter. And she'll be the first to tell you that, like, in your moment, in your way, in your life, no matter what you're facing, that's the decision, right? And we're going to go with what's easy or what helps us avoid the threat, or are we going to go walk forward in faith with what we know we've been asked to do, and trust that the tools and the resources and the timing and everything will align to make that happen. And that if we're just courageous enough to be the catalyst, we get to be along for that ride.
Oh, again, that is so well said. Yeah. The part about being courageous and going along for the ride. When you step out and you just have that faith, you are so absolutely right. And it did manifest itself into some wonderful things. I mean, turning into, recognizing that I had my own post-traumatic stress and didn't even realize it. Mm-hmm. So being, the ability then to get myself healthy, get our family and Michael super healthy. And now it really, my huge focus now is, the 10 years before this comprehensive soldier fitness was developed, we had, just speaking currently, we had 10 years of deployments of service members who never had this. So they, come back, they get out of the military, they go to hometown USA and wonder what in the world is going on with themselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what we reach out to those that didn't have the opportunity to go through this kind of training and help them understand that this is perfectly normal. And at the same time, we're reaching the Vietnam veterans who, had none of this. I mean, nobody even spoke of it. Mm-hmm. So you're right. The ripple effect from making that one decision to have that meeting that day, demo case, has made a delightful difference and a positive difference in many people's lives. And that's what we're going to continue to work on and do.
That's so beautiful. Well, know that we are here to support that. Know that, you can lean on our community whenever it seems appropriate or in resonance, and whatever we can do to contribute to the work that you continue to do and to highlight the work that's been done. We're happy to do that. Just a big thank you on behalf of all of us for that work. And I, you casually applauded my book earlier, and I want to circle back to that because I can't speak enough about, given your background and the work that you've done in trauma and everything else, and I certainly was not a scholar of trauma, but I was just like you, like working through my own process with it. And it was out of necessity to be able to tie certain components together. And for me, it was really recognizing the cognitive aspects of power. At that time, I hadn't even scratched the surface of what it had done to my body. I just knew I had left it. Like just wasn't in it anymore. Like I couldn't be. I didn't know what to do. And so that means a great deal to me that you read the book and you enjoyed it, because it is, in my opinion, such a superficial kind of overview of what I experienced and what I was seeing in others. And so I appreciate, and I just wanted to thank you for that. It's not casual to me at all. I appreciate, and it means more in fact, even when I gave you the book, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like this woman is like brilliant in all these spaces. And I'm like, here's my little, this is my take on trauma, at the time when I wrote it. And so it means a lot to me that it was valuable to you in some manner.
Well, after I read it, I thought, I'm taking your book to our VWise convention that we're having in Atlanta. I know we spoke with about that a little bit when we were together, speaking specifically of you and of Neva. So I want to take the book and I want to talk to them face to face about perhaps being able to celebrate the both of you. But I think, I mean, just because of my background and because you and I are both women veterans, I think that every woman veteran or any woman in the military for sure should read that book. And then every other woman, but specifically because it meant so much to me, and because I've been connected with so many women veterans who would just be enlightened by your book. It's just such a remarkable read, and it's not so technical like the textbooks I'm reading right now. What does this word mean? It's as if I was having a conversation with you, which made it really fun and enjoyable. And it's just a great book. So you should make sure that you tell everybody about it.
You're so sweet. Well, I feel like everybody's getting to witness our little love fest here, and it's just, Jill and I could talk for hours, but if nothing else, folks, take her story and allow it to move through you and give you the strength and the courage to know you're not alone in this. We've been there, we've walked those paths. Like, we're happy to support you. There are organizations that are in support of that, and no matter what you're facing, you do have what you need to step into it. But we're happy to help illuminate that or support you as you do. And it's, anyway, so Jill, we're going to wrap up, but let's again direct people to, this able vet.
Right. Disabled.
Did I have that right? Okay.
Yeah,
so let's spell it again for folks who are listening.
Sure. This THISABLEVET.com.
Perfect. Well, absolutely brilliant. Jill, obviously I can't thank you enough. And you two are Neva's over the moon. She just loves you both so much. And so she's excited to have you and Michael on her show. So be practicing your funny faces in the mirror. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, Michael's not funny. So
oh, perfect. Well, I don't know the sequencing of the air dates, but folks, will make sure to cross-link these two interviews because Jill's super fun and amazing. And then when you get her with her husband Michael, and he's just this beautiful light in the world, and his gifts and his voice and how he touches people's lives, and just the like generous way that he gives of himself. I mean, to the troops and overseas. I mean, that's a story in of itself. Maybe I'll poke Neva and have her tell the story of how the two of you met. But regardless, we're just so delightful that our that we're orbiting around each other these days. And just thank you so much for coming on. And I know that you don't often step into the spotlight, so it does mean a lot to me that you're willing to share this and talk about it, and just continue to be in service to this amazing movement that you helped birth into the world. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, thank you so much. You are just wonderful. I love the way you just made me feel so relaxed and fun. And it's like you're sitting right here with me in the kitchen.
Which we should be.
Exactly.
Let's make that happen.
Yes.
Well, beautiful. And to all of you out there, as always, we appreciate your loyalty. We love that you listen to us, and make sure you're connecting with us somewhere, somehow. Go to the website or go to our Facebook group, Superpowers Are Real, or, all kinds of fun ways we continue to explore how we can connect with you and assist you, and reach out if you need support and you need assistance. We'll put a link to the book. We've got a link. We'll put a link in on the webpage to Jill's site, but just make sure that you are reaching out and connecting people. We can't do it alone. And there's all kinds of amazing ways that you can connect in with other people for that level of support. And we're happy to. If you are a veteran, make sure that you connect up with Jill and her organization, particularly if you could use additional support. Please, please, please ask for help. Don't sit silently. It's not worth it. Connect in. It's not about you being broken or needing healing or needing someone to help you. It's about having the courage to once again be fully who you are. And for a lot of people, we forget who we are when we're carrying that level of stress or trauma in our bodies. And there are solutions, and they're not painful, and they're not embarrassing. And it's important to nurture yourself in that way. So please be sure to reach out and get assistance with that. Jill, again, thank you to all of you out there. Thank you. Keep walking your paths. Find your superpowers. Have an impact. And until next time, we love you and we honor your journeys. Take care. Thank you.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.